Saint Gregory by Charles Boehler. Part 1. Abbey of the Holy Ghost. Chapter 2. Post-Mortem. September 18th, 1859. The wooden cart groaned and creaked in the settling dusk. Shadows fell across empty streets, the dark edges of squat buildings growing long in the light of the waning moon. Two figures, the gravedigger and his son, huddled under cloak and hat, while in the back a white bundle rocked and shook. The cart stopped before the doctor's office, a weathered building on the edge of St. Gregory whose shingle creaked in the late summer breeze. Its carved words above read, Dr. Hermann Albrecht, Arztpraxis. The doctor poked his graying head through a crack in the door. "Quickly now, on the table, boys," he hissed, staring warily down the dark streets. They struggled under the awkward weight of the bundle, sweat beading their brows in the muggy night as they panted and pulled, dragging it into the tiny clinic. The room was cluttered with odd books on the shelves, and medical implements, saws and knives, lay about on every surface, mixed with the strange bottles of pills or tinctures. Diagrams adorned the walls, pen and ink drawings of anatomy and botanical sketchings of medicinal herbs. And along the far wall, past the exam table, stood a narrow and well-used hutch. Dirty glasses lined its counter beside a half-empty bottle of brown whiskey and various digestives. "Ho, lift now, Poldy," the gravedigger Sepp said. Poldy hefted as his balding father grunted at the other end. With a final heave, the bundle crashed upon the table, sending dirty plates clattering to the floor, and the two stepped back, panting and wiping oily sweat from their necks. The men stood in silence, staring. Sepp and Poldy on one side, and Albrecht and Dr. Feet, the Manitowoc County Medical Examiner, on the other. "My good Dr. Feet," Albrecht said, "would you be so kind?" The examiner stirred in the corner before stepping into the light to look at his pocket watch. The distinguished man looked out of place as he smoothed his tweed vest and brushed the white ends of his curled mustache. "I trust you're taking notes, Dr. Albrecht. The time is 9:24 in the evening, and the date is September 18th, 1859. "Very good," Albrecht sighed. "Let's begin." The doctor drew a knife across the rope binding of the bundle. It frayed and snapped, and a bare leg flopped into view. He drew the sheet back, revealing a torn and mangled body. "It's the miller's boy," he rubbed his weary eyes. "Ah, poor Augustine. What happened to you?" A grimace lay on the dead boy's face. Blood splattered his cold lips and clung in his sandy red hair. His once pink cheeks were now dull white and stiff across his high cheekbones. "Merciful Lord above," Poldy cried. "Da, this ain't right." Albrecht leaned forward, lifting the bloodied shirt away to peer below. A gaping hole pierced the belly, diving deep into the chest, and black blood, thick and tacky, pulled at the cloth as he stripped it away. Sepp cleared his throat and shuffled his feet, quietly making the sign of the cross, while Poldy looked with anxious eyes to the doctor. "Please, sir." Poldy shook his round head and raised his hands in protest. "I'll bury them right, so they don't come back, but I don't want no part of this. Please, call me when he's all wrapped up again." Albrecht crossed his arms, considering. He stroked his mutton chops with the yellowed fingers as the light of the lantern cast long shadows across his wrinkled face. "I don't envy you telling his father Otto tomorrow," Dr. Feet said. These woods are filled with innumerable wild creatures. 'Tis a pity." Albrecht said. "Wild creatures indeed." "Doctor, please," said Poldy. "You'll be all right there, Poldy, my boy," said Albrecht. "Just take a breath. Why don't you head on home? Your pa will be along shortly. There's naught for you to do here tonight, but breathe not a word of this to another soul. And Poldy, best you fetch Father Ambrose." Dr. Feet cleared his throat. Lamplight glinted from the metal tip of his cane as he lifted the dead boy's shirt to examine the wound. "Come now, Dr. Albrecht," he said. "It is plain to see this is the work of an animal. Not everything is a phantom of the night. Maybe it's best you don't bring an outside observer, especially one with no medical training, to what is only an unfortunate accident. There are enough stories about your backwards little town to embarrass the county already. No need to invite more." Albrecht looked up from the cuts and gashes. He considered Dr. Feet for a moment before turning to Poldy. "Best fetch him." Ambrose stared at the black paper, pen in hand. The warm glow of an old lamp flickered, its tiny flame not reaching the dark corners of the room, and his face danced in shadows. Though he had just reached his 31st year, the wan light made his hawkish nose and brown eyes seem far older. His cell in the abbey was sparse, little more than a closet of rough board and hard plaster. The only furnishings were a bed and a table at which he sat. The only adornment, the cross on the wall. The evening bells had long since tolled, and the brothers in their nearby cells sat in their nightly reflections. He should have done the same. But the page before him lay empty, waiting to be filled with his report and letter of update to Cardinal Eberhard in Karlsruhe. He sighed and rubbed his eyes. There's nothing to tell. He had been here almost 2 weeks, and Father Valentine still hadn't returned from his retreat. Without the town's leader, the people avoided him. Few ventured to speak, and none of them would tell of the missing Stephen, or the unsavory events of the past few years. Only a stray word, or a suspicious glance hinted that something lay hidden beneath their polite smiles. A soft knock came from the door. "Father Ambrose," a voice whispered. "Please, pardon the intrusion." Startled, Ambrose opened the door to Brother Meinhardt's chubby smile. He had met the old brother only briefly on his arrival. He couldn't imagine what he could possibly want at this hour, as he stood before him, hands on his fat belly and ruby cheeks flushed from too much wine. But before he could ask, the creak of wooden floors rose nearby and light flickered beneath closed doors as the brothers in their cells pressed their ears to the walls, listening for gossip. "Father Valentine said to help as we can, as an act of good faith and to keep you abreast of any strangeness." Meinhardt stepped close to whisper, "Dr. Albrecht has sent for you." Ambrose stared, puzzled. What could the doctor want from me that a priest of the town can't provide? He grabbed his Bible and cross for last rites. Frowning, Meinhard shook his head. "You'll not be needing those, I think." The street was empty and dark. Only scant light flickered here and there, dim in the passing windows, and Ambrose drew his hood against the feeling of watchful eyes. The old priest shuffled, leading them through narrow alleys and back roads, out of sight and out of view of the main street. The hotel passed in the distance. The horses snorted and stomped in the stable, and a lone fiddle rose over the din of dishes and laughter, a woman's voice beside it. But soon they passed, and the night grew quiet again. The doctor's office stood dark at the edge of town. Yellow light peeked through curtains as they neared, and muffled voices rose within, sharp and heated. Meinhardt hesitated, hand against the rough door, before finally knocking. The house fell silent as the door slowly opened, and the doctor peered cautiously into the night. Come in, Albrecht waved. Ambrose covered his mouth as a rank air struck them. The room was cluttered with odds and ends. All about lay papers and books. Saws and knives lay spread on a bureau, and above was a cabinet of tinctures and powders. The room was an odd collection of people. The old doctor tugged at his white mutton chops, lost in thought as he paced. Meanwhile, a dapper man with slick gray hair and woolen suit bent forward, his back turned as he examined something on the table. A young man in ratty clothes and unkempt hair held his hand over his mouth as though ill, and beside him, an old and wiry man stood, head bowed and cap in hand. Ambrose recognized the last two, the undertaker and his son. Father Ambrose, this is Dr. Albrecht, Meinhardt gestured to the old doctor. Doctor, I have brought Father Ambrose as you asked. Father Valentine asks our good charity in the matters concerning the Catholic Commission. Now, it's not my place to stick my nose where it doesn't belong, so I'd best take my leave. Make sure none of you suffers as a murderer, a thief, an evildoer, or a troublesome meddler. Peter 4:15, Albrecht said, and I trust you to keep such prudence on your way back to the Abbey. No troublesome meddlers here. I have not seen or heard a thing, Meinhardt said, and bowed before closing the door. Ah, Father Ambrose, Albrecht turned. It is nice to finally meet your acquaintance. You no doubt wonder why I sent for you at this late hour. It's no bother, I hope. Father Valentine asked that you be privy to anything notable. Ambrose nodded, shook his hand, noting the calluses of his palm and the whiskey on his breath. And I take it that bundle is something notable? That remains to be seen. The doctor lifted the torn sheet to reveal the body. Dead limbs shone gray in the dim light, streaked with blood, dry and black. In the center was a deep hole, lost in the darkness of the chest. The boy looked to be 16 or 17, and would have been handsome in life, but now wore a gruesome countenance he would carry to the grave. Ambrose turned in horror, looking away to the dark corners of the room, anywhere but the table in front of him. He had seen death before. Consumption had swept the Alsace and Baden, but he had rarely seen a body so disemboweled, not up close. Now he was face to face with more than he could have imagined. The awful rumors seemed true. Albrecht poured him a glass of brown liquor. Eyes watering from the fumes, Ambrose coughed and politely declined. No matter how horrid the scene, he would not lose himself to drink. Not like his father. Suit yourself, Albrecht said, and downed Ambrose's glass, setting it on the table next to the body with a thud. So, the examiner said, now that we're all here, we can get on with it, and maybe let poor Sepp leave for the night. Father, this is Dr. Thomas Fiet, our esteemed county medical examiner. He was in the area on business, and I asked that he observe, Albrecht said. And this is Joseph Sepp Lischka, the church groundsman and gravedigger as needed. Somewhat oft needed of late, I'm afraid, Sepp said, and hung his balding head. His thin frame was bent in sadness, and his thick fingers fidgeted with the coarse rim of his dingy and frayed hat. Ambrose extended his hand, but Dr. Feet ignored and, grunting, turned back to the corpse. "Dr. Albrecht is an overly cautious man, Father," he said. "You'll soon appreciate that. But you'll curse his caution when he rouses you from bed at all hours of the night. Even now he can't rest until he knows what wild creature did this to poor Augustine, the miller's boy." "If it was a wild creature," Albrecht said, "look here. See the breaks in the flesh along the wound? How clean they are? I would say they look more from a knife than a tooth." He prodded the flesh with a scalpel, but to Ambrose it was just a gruesome wound. Dr. Feet drew a pipe and took a long, slow puff. Much to Ambrose's relief, whirls of white, woodsy smoke chased away the sourness for a moment. "If it's a knife, it's the dullest one to be found," Dr. Feet said. "This was nothing but a beast." "Begging your pardon, sirs," Sepp looked down, embarrassed. "I think it not a man. But if a beast, it is a foul and wicked one, to be sure." Dr. Feet raised an eyebrow. "Oh? And what do you mean by that?" "Forgive me, it's not my place. Only, does the boy have his heart?" Albrecht felt into the chest with his bare hand. "By Jove, he does not." "Wolves eat first the organs. There's nothing strange about that," Dr. Feet said. "Come, let's wrap this up." Albrecht ignored him, holding a lantern to the wound. "Sepp, what suspicions caused you to look there?" Sepp stroked his chin. "I can't rightly say. Or rather, I shouldn't. You'd think me even more a fool than I am." Albrecht turned to Ambrose. His wrinkled hand pulled his mutton chops and his bushy eyebrows scrunched, considering. "And what are your thoughts, Father? Is this man or beast?" Ambrose flushed in surprise as the others turned expectantly. Why would he know? "I'm not sure how I should have any idea. I know nothing of this foreign land or its wild beasts, and less even of medicine. Perhaps one should search the area. Where was the boy found?" "In the woods south of town," Sepp ventured. "By the small lake. Pigeon Lake, they call it. Young loves go there in the moonlight against their parents' wishes. Doubtless Augustine was meant to see Isa, the cobbler's daughter, but we could do no search of the grounds at night, not without waking the town." "In that case, I'd suggest searching the grounds at first light," Ambrose said. "And perhaps this Isa may know something." "You see," Dr. Feet shook his head dismissively, "the Catholic Commission already hard at work investigating." He donned his hat and rapped his cane on the wooden floor as he left. "Gentlemen, I've had enough. Good night." Long moments passed in silence. "Perhaps it would be in the spirit of Father Valentine's hospitality," Albrecht said, "for Father Ambrose to accompany good Master Sepp in search of the grounds in the morning. Assuming, of course, neither of you is indisposed." "I cannot miss lauds," Ambrose said. "But I suppose I could come after." Sepp nodded. "I shall have breakfast and tea waiting." "It's settled then," said Albrecht. "Now, if you gentlemen will leave me to my autopsy, I have a long night ahead of me, and I must break the news to poor Otto. That shan't be easy." If you're a fan of Midwest Gothic and would like to be notified about the next chapter and any upcoming stories, please click like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for listening.